Right, we're going to look now at UK-US diplomacy because Foreign Secretary David Cameron is the latest European leader to make the trip to Washington. Just a few hours ago, he met US Secretary of State Antony Blinken here. Talks focused on, well, the two major conflicts, bringing stability to the Middle East and the war in Ukraine. Now, Republican lawmakers have been holding up a proposed $60 billion military aid package for Ukraine for months. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson hasn't let the Ukraine aid issue be debated in the House of Representatives as yet. Now, Lord Cameron said it wasn't for foreign politicians to tell lawmakers in another country what to do, but he urged Congress to see the funding released.
I think it is absolutely the interests of US security that Putin fails in his illegal invasion. I think it's good for US jobs that we continue to back Ukraine with the weapons that they need. And I think in terms of how the United States and the United Kingdom as allies are seen around the world, there will be people in Tehran, in Pyongyang, in Beijing, looking at how we stand by our allies, how we help them, how we stop this illegal and unprovoked aggression, and working out whether we are committed, whether we're prepared to see it through.
And Mr. Blinken said they'd also talked about ways to prevent the transfer of weapons to Russia, particularly from China and North Korea.
This is an ongoing challenge, and we see weapons. We also see technologies to support the defense industrial base in Russia coming from North Korea, from Iran, from China. This is an area of particular concern for not only the United States and the United Kingdom, but many of our allies and partners throughout Europe.
Let's speak now to our State Department correspondent, Tom Bateman. Hi, Tom. So what should we take away from that press conference?
Well, the most significant bit of news was an answer to, that Lord Cameron gave to a question I asked him in the press briefing there, which was about the growing pressure on the UK government to halt arms sales to Israel around the issue of whether or not Israel had been deemed by the UK to be in breach of international humanitarian law in Gaza. Now, Lord Cameron had said on the 8th of March that he would receive legal advice within days about that issue. But here we are a month later and there had still been no announcement. So I asked him that question. What did the UK government deem Israel to have done when it came to international humanitarian law? And he confirmed in his answer that the UK would continue to supply weapons to Israel, and therefore that a review had taken place. And my understanding is these are fairly broad, not just legal reviews, but also policy-based reviews. And under that, the UK would continue to sell what is around a £35 million a year trade in weapons to the Israelis. But he also said that they continue to have concerns about the issue and they would continue to review it. So that was there too. But that was a significant moment in that news briefing there.
OK, Tom, thank you very much for that. We're going to take a look now at the issue of Ukraine. We can speak to Global Affairs analyst and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, Michael Bosacue, who's in Odessa in Ukraine. Thank you very much for coming on the programme.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
So let's talk about this issue of politicians going from one country to another saying, well, we can't tell you what to do, but you really ought to do this. Basically, Lord Cameron today in Washington expressing his support for Ukraine and urging the US to do the same. How do you find that balance, that diplomatic balance?
Well, it was very entertaining. I think Lord Cameron was being very tight-lipped about his trip to Florida. But I am quite sure, I would bet money on it, that he told Mr. Trump exactly what's going to happen if that $60 billion in aid, which is being blocked by his member Republicans, will not reach Ukraine. And I noticed that both ministers made the point that a lot of this money that is earmarked for Ukraine is not going to be loaded onto pallets and, airlifted to Ukraine. It's actually going to stay in the United States and create jobs. That's a message that the American public needs to hear. But the other quick thing that came out is I noticed Lord Cameron was almost ahead of his U.S. counterpart, Mr. Blinken, in terms of his conviction, in terms of his passion, in terms of the arguments made for aid to Ukraine. It's almost as if the Americans were a bit hedging about it. But Lord Cameron really, his message really came through that if this war is not stopped, if this aid is not delivered, Putin will go further and it will become a lot more costlier for everybody.
And the potential hesitancy, yes, there's diplomatic politics at play, there's party politics at play. Is it simple geography as well? The country is far away, seen as a faraway problem?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The message I got out of today more clearly than ever is that it is now the United Kingdom and Europe that are going to take the lead on the so-called Ukraine file in terms of helping Ukraine, for example, bolster their domestic production of ammunition. But the other thing that came through is I think Lord Cameron rightly tiptoed through everything because it is a very complicated political scene in the United States right now, where the man who has basic control over this vote, Speaker Johnson, I think he does support Ukraine. I think he does have the votes to make that bill pass. I think he knows that the US public support this, but he's prioritizing his own political future over everything else, that he wants to remain important in that Trump wing of the Republican Party. And what's going to happen there if he continues along this path, I think people will see him as a man who could not summon the political courage to do the right thing, and hence this war will continue to go on for a lot longer than it has to.
And what do you think the implications would be for Ukraine if Trump won the presidency?
Oh, absolutely horrible. He views himself as the master of the art of the deal. He will try to bring it to resolution in 24 hours. Leaked reports from closed-door conversations he's had indicate what most of us believe is that he'll give in to territorial concessions. Crimea will remain in Russian hands. The Donbass, other areas that Russia has seized, including that crucial land bridge between the Russian mainland and the western part of Ukraine. And he'll probably give the signals to Mr. Putin that he can go even further. I mean, there's a lot of nervousness, I have to tell you, right here in Odessa. We've had alarms, air raid alarms, most of the day and night, and missiles coming this way. It's not going the right way whatsoever.
Well, I just want to very briefly expand on exactly that, because I wanted to highlight that that is exactly where you are and ask a bit about what life is like and how it is going right now.
A couple of things. I mean, I'm very close to the port, and these strikes tend to target electrical infrastructure. If there's no power, there's no port working, and there's no grain going to world markets. The other thing on the other side of the country in Kyiv, it's really hell on earth, being bombed relentlessly. It does look like the Russians are on an all campaign to turn it into a piece of rubble, a gray zone, and possibly even encircle it. So very, very bad news coming out of Kyiv tonight as well.
Michael Bosque, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.